Yeah, I'll go through the whole spiel. Yeah. And it's Cozzi.
Okay, go on. It's what?
Cozzi. The last Cozzi, like pizza, right?
Yeah. Use here now.
My background is.
Yeah, there's a, it's up there. Oh, let's check the audio levels. Can you?
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Hello, everybody out there online. Welcome to Modular 8's streaming of the Eventide workshop.
Actually, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up, whether you're here at the store, in the shop, or online. My name is Joe Cozzi. I'm the National Sales Manager with Eventide. And today we're going to cover a little bit of history and some sonic possibilities with 3 of our key products, the Euro DDL digital delay, our new Rose pedal, and of course, the DSP powerhouse known as the H9 Max, right? So just real quick, a show of hands for those of us at the shop, who has heard of Eventide before? Okay, almost everybody. Cool, yeah, I mean, we've been around since 1971, if we could show the slide real quick.
Oh, let me switch.
Yeah. The Blue Note, we found it. Awesome. Yeah, so it's a company that's been around since 1971. We're in pretty much in anything that has to do with signal processing. Originally, we're known for the harmonizer and ultra harmonizer rack mount effects processors. Then, of course, we made our way into the software world. And our latest foray is the pedal market, which we started in the early 2000s, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that Eventide pioneered many technologies in audio. Like we gave the world the first rack mount effects processor in the instant phaser. So this processor emulates the effect that happens when you press your thumb down on the flange of one of 2 sync tape machines. You get this kind of whoosh, jet wash effect, right? So of course, using analog all-pass networks, we were able to emulate this behavior. Now, before '71, the terms flanging and phasing were kind of interchangeable to describe this behavior. But it was really until Eventide kind of came up with the architecture that there was a distinction, right? So phasing uses all-pass filtering networks. In 1972, Eventide invented the world's first digital delay, the DDL 1745. Imagine, that rack mount processor back then cost $5,000. So in today's money, it's like $26,000, all for 200 milliseconds of delay. But it was pivotal for the industry because once again, as an engineer, you didn't have to buy 2 expensive tape machines to do things like double tracking, right? You hear this on a lot of early Aerosmith records, Led Zeppelin, etc. Not only that, but you could also, for the first time, add pre-delay to plate reverbs, right? Because plate reverbs kick in instantaneously, and making them sound more realistic, you use a couple milliseconds of delay to make them sound more natural. So you were able to do this. But this processor used what's known as digital bucket brigade technology. And I'll get into a little bit more later what that entails. But we use the same circuitry on the successor to the phaser, the flanger. Instant flanger used digital bucket brigade to create a more exaggerated flanging effect, right? With a deeper null. We even have a bounce back circuit that emulates the behavior of the servo motor on a tape machine trying to catch up after you've let your thumb go or the palm of your hand go, right? But both of these units gave you unprecedented amount of control for an effects processor during that era. You had a built-in oscillator, you had manual control, you could use the mod wheel to control the depth of the effect, etc., right? So let's delve a little bit more into the DDL 1745 because this technology is pivotal to what we did with the Euro DDL and the Eventide Rose pedal, right? So who can tell me how analog bucket brigade delays work? Anybody? Take a guess. So basically, you have an integrated circuit full of shift registers, sometimes hundreds, sometimes all the way up to thousands, depending on the quality of the integrated circuit, right? And each one of these shift registers is comprised of capacitors and transistors that all they do is to take a snapshot of the voltage of your signal, hold it in place, and then shift it to another register, and so forth. Think about it as a line of firefighters passing along buckets of water to put out a fire, right? This is in fact how the architecture got its name, except instead of shifting voltages, what Eventide did is they came up with an architecture that shifts samples, right? And in doing so, you're able to overcome a lot of the shortcomings of delays, like being able to go all the way down to microseconds of delay versus just maybe 20 or 50 milliseconds, like the most common analog delay pedals that are out in the market, right? Similarly, at most, an analog bucket brigade delay can go maybe 1 to 3 seconds. With digital bucket brigade technology, especially like the one you find in the Euro DDL or the Rose pedal, you can go all the way to 160 seconds as it pertains to the Euro DDL modular unit, or 50 seconds of delay as it pertains to the Eventide Rose. Obviously, by shifting the sample rate, this is how you're able to do that, right? If we take a look at the inside, this is what the original digital delay looked like. Each one of those are shift registers. Now you fit them on chips that are way smaller, obviously, right? But the third incarnation of the DDL 1745 was also the first audio processor in history to use RAM memory. In fact, for a time in the early 80s, Eventide was the biggest third-party RAM manufacturer in the world because the only available RAM chips that existed were from HP, and they cost a lot of money. So we got into that business, and we started selling to other companies, etc. But using RAM memory made shifting delay much finer. It also allowed for pitch shifting, right? So the early pitch shift modules, you could get them and install them into the DDL 1745M, M stands for memory, and achieve rudimentary style of pitch shifting, right? So, which brings us to the Euro DDL, which is Eventide's new Eurorack digital delay. Is that better?
Hold on, I gotta switch.
Switch, awesome.
I'm mesmerized. Hold on.
Cool. Let's try that again. I'm going to do my best to work around this. But anyhow, you have a digital delay Eurorack module that's the most pristine on the market. Why? Because it samples at 192 kilohertz, which is like DVD quality and even better, right? I think DVD is 24-bit, 96K. High fidelity audio, as with the Avid systems, is 24-bit, 192. And with such a high sampling rate, you're able to achieve really short delay times for Karplus Strong style effects, if you wanted to, right? Or comb filtering and phasing effects. So to demonstrate the capability here, just point out, if you guys can see the front panel, you have an input and an output gain control. All right. I'll hold this in place.
Crank down that little knob on the side.
I got it. Yeah, here we go. Oh, is it drifting down?
Yeah, no sweat. I can see it here. So you have this input and an output gain knob here. So at every stage in the process, you can regulate your audio, right? But you also have a drive switch that gives you a 20 dB boost. So if I play a sample here, I'm going to ride my levels here. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's use a little groove I created here. I used a Moog DFAM unit to come up with some like hard techno thing here, right? Now, all I'm going to do is turn the delay knob without pushing it, so you have fine control. You can navigate microseconds all the way to seconds, etc. If you push down on the knob and turn, you can increment much more rapidly. So of course, the kill switch is on, so I'm going to. That's what that sounds like. So now I'm going to push down on the knob, and you start getting into more noticeable delay times, right? Now what you could do is use the tap tempo button. Right? If you hold the tap tempo button down and turn the delay knob, you can access subdivisions. I'm going to leave it at a dotted eighth just because I like that groove for the remainder of the demo. Another cool feature is you have this multiplier. Now this instantaneously multiplies your sampling rate, and in so doing it causes a shift in the delay time. So if I, for example, sorry, I accidentally triggered that. If I, for example, have my delay time at 125, and then I hit the multiplier, you'll see how quickly it shifts the delay time. Now, if you hold multiply down, you can go all the way to 16 times. And in so doing, you decrease the resolution of the delay, but also elongate your delay time for up to 160 seconds of delay time. For those of you that like to do droning, looping, and things like that, it's very, very useful. Let's come back to my dotted eighth feel. So right under the multiplier, you have the filter control. Now this low-pass filter sweeps from 20K to 400 as you go counterclockwise. So back to my loop. Get that kind of tape echo feel just controlling the filter. Another interesting feature is you have control over the glide functionality of the Euro DDL. What does that mean? As you shift from one delay time to another, it can take as long as 5 seconds to make that shift. And you generate a very interesting pitch artifact. So if I, for example, start out with a very short delay time, right? And then I hold the kill button down as I turn the delay knob. Here you're able to adjust in seconds how long it takes. So I'm just going to set it to 5 seconds, and I'm going to change the delay time, and you'll see what that does. I'm going to put the mix at 100%. Right now the mix is at 100%, but I just wanted you to hear what that delay glide time sounds like. I'm going to go back to default, which is 0.1 right there, and demonstrate how you can use short delay times to create modulation. So for example, let's say I have this loop right here. Just going to use a very short delay time and an LFO to trigger the delay time. Now you can adjust the delay range holding down the invert button. The invert button just shifts the phase of the delay line. So at very short delay times, when you're in the comb filtering mode, you can kind of access a different type of null, or maybe your low end kind of reappears, depending on the kind of signal you're processing. But if you hold invert down and turn the delay knob, you can set in seconds what that delay change range is, right? So I'm going to access an LFO here. Stop out. And I'm going to connect it to the delay time. And as you can see, you've just created modulation. If I elongate the range from 5 seconds to 10 seconds, it gets deeper, right? Now you can use the glide functionality that I showed you earlier to smooth that out. This is what it sounds like. So it's less obvious that there's modulation there, but yeah. that's one neat way that you can use control voltage to adjust your delay time to create modulation. Now, I'm going to choose a different loop here to demonstrate like how you could access carpless strong tones. Carpless strong basically allows you to use heavy feedback settings with very short delay times to create pitches, right? So if I, for example, let's start here. Let me reset this a second. Go back to default values. I have 2 Euro DDLs in series. Let me make this adjustment here so you can see. Okay. One I'm going to use at a very short delay time to add some body to the loop. So 30 milliseconds. The second Euro DDL is just my dotted eighth groove, right? Just to add some bounce. To control the feedback of the loop, and I'm going to make it accent near the snare so it sounds like it's coming at you here. Filter. So it accents that pitch, right? And now if you vary the delay time, you can change that pitch. I can use my multiplier to get back to that original pitch, right? And here I'm just using the reverse button. Cool. Any questions on Euro DDL before we move on?
Clock sync?
Yeah, you have it. You have clock sync. It's 2.5 in, 5 volts out.
And so then the delay time.
Correct. So then that takes precedent over whatever delay time you've tapped.
Okay.
Yeah. What other questions do you have? Anybody online asking questions? Yeah.
Not yet. I just
Okay.
asked them. I'll let you know.
Sure, absolutely.
What's these units cost?
$3.99. Yes. Sweet. So let's move on to Rose. If we can get the images on the display back up. Can we put a low pass or a high pass filter on my microphone? Yeah. Excellent. Nice. Awesome. Perfect. So Rose uses the same architecture as the Euro DDL. I'm just going to make a quick change here. Sweet. And again, you're overcoming a lot of limitations from traditional analog delay pedals, right? Number one, there's a mechanical limit to how short a delay time you can achieve with traditional analog bucket brigades. At most, or at its lowest, 20 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds. At its most, 3 seconds, right? Rose can go all the way down to 100 microseconds, and it can go as high as 50 seconds. You can do things like infinite looping, something that you can't do on an analog delay. You can do regeneration on an analog delay, but that gets out of hand fairly quickly. With a digital buffered delay, you can loop indefinitely without there being any sort of change to the audio unless you impart some modulation or effects on that. And as you can see here, these are some of the other competitors that you will find on the market that do similar things, right? So how do we achieve analog circuitry and digital delay? Well, the whole pedal is analog. All the mixing of signals, the feedback path, the filtering, all of that happens in the analog domain. There is absolutely zero digital signal processing going on. The only thing that is digital is the delay line, right? And by manipulating the A to D and the D to A, you're able to achieve modulation as well. I'll get into that a little bit later. Let me move this so people online can see the rows a little bit. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right, that works. Let's move it over so you can see. So this, what's that? Somebody said something? Good. So let's run some tones here. Let me ride the.
Oh, you want to switch to the iPad?
Yeah. Now you can show people online what we're looking at.
All right.
So this is just a loop I created. I'm gonna engage rows. Now it has similar functionality as a Euro DDL where if you just simply turn the delay knob, it'll adjust your delay time within that range. Rows, as you can see here, well,
Sorry, you'll stabilize a second.
that's fine. You have one of 10 different ranges that you can choose to work with, right? So right now we're actually in the 6th range, so you get a nice long delay time, right? But as I turn the knob, you'll begin to see how the pitch changes like an analog delay would. And if I push it and turn it to go to a different delay range, it'll go all the way down to the comb filtering mode. So in the first range, actually, which is my comb filtering mode, you get that phasey effect, right? Not the microphone, the synth here. So there, to the right of the delay knob, there's a phi button, and this serves to invert the phase, kind of like the invert button on the Euro DDL. And in doing so, you get a different type of null that may be beneficial to you, depending on your signal. You have the same type of low-pass filter on rows that you do on Euro DDL, meaning it sweeps from 20K to 400 as you go clockwise. So if I have a loop like this, the feedback control obviously can give you up to 1 repeat and go all the way to like almost 110%. So you got to be careful because it can get out of control fairly easily, right? Modulation, how do we achieve it? Well, again, like the original DDL 1745 digital delay, you are manipulating the A to D of just the delay buffer, right? With rows, we're manipulating not only the A to D, but the D to A of that delay buffer. And in doing so, you have 5 different wave shapes that you can use to add modulation. Sine wave, square wave, random. You even have an envelope follower. So depending on the attack of the input signal, it will bend or pitch shift the audio there. Let's make an adjustment here. All right, we're good here. Perfect. You also have manual control, meaning you can use the onboard rate knob, an expression pedal, or even CV control from, say, an LFO on a mod unit, right? Let me get something a little more airy to demonstrate Now I'm going to exaggerate the waveforms so you can see exactly what they're doing. That's square wave right there. This next one is random. So obviously, if you back off on the depth and the rate enough, you can use these to kind of generate interesting chorus or rotary effects, right? To demonstrate the envelope follower, I'm going to use a stabby effect here. You see how the rose is turning green? That's indicating that you're in envelope following mode. I'm going to use the third preset to demonstrate this. It could be a type of modulation that only happens when there's signal. At deeper settings, it does some crazy H910 harmonizer stuff. To demonstrate the manual control, I'll use the piano sample here. Usually is more noticeable at longer delay times. Doing there is manually adjusting the sample rate, and in doing so it's also changing your delay time, but the side effect is that very interesting pitch change, right? And right now I have the signal set to 100% wedge, so that's very obvious, right? One of the most interesting features of Rose is this delta button here. It's called the delta multiplier, and it functions the same way the multiply button functions on the Euro DDL. It instantaneously changes your sample rate from 2, 3, 4, or 5 times the sample rate. And of course, that generates cool crystallization artifacts. If you're into looping it, you can layer that sound, and it's different. I'll just give you an example here using the 4th preset. And as you can see, there is a dedicated button for the delta multiplier, but you can map the hot switch to one of 7 different functions, right? And in this case, I have it mapped to the delta multiplier, as you can see. So I'm going to use another loop here. This is a simple loop, right? So right now, the delta multiplier is on. And when I engage the pedal, this is what happens. Notice how the resolution of the delay is different. So when I engage it, start blinking, and now you can use the shift button to change that delta multiplier in real time, right? So for example, if I'm on this sound here, let's make that adjustment there. For example, if I go to, say, so right now we're on preset number 1, the A component, right? If I hit this, now it's basically like having a preset within a preset. And listen to what happens. What you're hearing is the 5 button, which, as I explained to you earlier, within 20 milliseconds it serves as an inverter. But after, with longer delay times, it serves to reverse the delay time, the delay time entirely. So let's go back to that simple piano loop for a second. Now I engage the B component. Similarly, on preset number 2, it's like a chorus effect. The B component to that is like a rotary. So you can use the hot switch to kind of go from preset A to preset B. And whatever you program on A and B, you can also morph in and out of with an expression pedal. So that's a very interesting capability. Right now I have the rows set to Midi mode, which allows you to do a little bit more advanced stuff. But for example, if you are on a particular sound, let's say preset number 1, which is a straightforward delay. You can use Midi to have an expression pedal, for example, roll off the filter. Obviously, with Midi capability, you can use a controller like this. I use a Morningstar MC6, very easy to program. But a MIDI controller instantaneously allows you to access a wide variety of sounds. So for example, with MIDI, you could even do you can map or assign controller change numbers to all the delta values, right? So if we go back to this sample here, and I use preset number 1. So as you can see or read off the front panel, I have ×2, ×3, ×4, ×5. So if I just choose ×3 and then I infinitely repeat whatever's in the delay line, then I can manually change the sample rate and do interesting things. Check this out. I can even add modulation, right? Some square wave modulation or sine wave, or manually control it. Any questions about Rose? Yes.
It sounds amazing.
Cool, glad you like it.
And I was wondering, could you go back over what you just did with the MIDI stuff?
Absolutely. So earlier we talked about the delta multiplier, right? Delta multiplier instantaneously changes the sample rate. And what did we talk about earlier? Remember the bucket brigade, guys? As you change the rate, not only do you change the delay time, but the side effect is change in pitch, right? So what I've done is there are 4 delta multipliers on rows, ×2, ×3, ×4, ×5. I've assigned each one of them its own controller change number, and each one its own button on my controller. So let's try a different loop here. Let's see here. So I'm gonna press the ×3 button here, and it's gonna now adjust the multiplication to ×3. So what I've also done is mapped infinite repeat to button F here. So when I engage that, I could hold the delay line indefinitely and process on top of it. If I want to. And I just took it out of infinite repeat. So MIDI affords you so much more creativity, whether you're using a guitar-based controller like this, or something like an Akai, or a Arturia beat step, whatever it is, you can map controller change numbers to every facet of rows, including subdivisions, infinite loop control, A and B control. And depending on how advanced your MIDI controller is, you can map things like the filter knob to an expression pedal. Heck, I could even map those individual delay multipliers to an expression pedal. So if I do that real quick. Look at my expression pedal. So all the expression pedal is doing, it's going through the series of values for each controller change number that corresponds to each delay multiplier. And for those of you not familiar with MIDI, it sounds complicated, but I promise you, once you begin to delve into the MIDI world and you program your first, for example, control of the delta multiplier, or something as simple as the filter knob, you want to do MIDI everything, right? Any other questions?
Can you show us how to do that? Like, how hard is it?
Well,
I hate to say, because this is something that always puzzles me because I'm MIDI ignorant.
Okay, so let's see if I could do this in a very simple manner.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And the Morningstar is just a MIDI controller.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a manufacturer out of Singapore, but again, I use disaster area controllers. Those are very cool. Boss ES5 or ES3 controllers. Let me see if I can find, I can't find it here. Let's see, PDS.
There's a huge bunch of like Max for Live, Live
So,
Max for Live under Ableton Live 10. There's a gazillion tools for MIDI out your computer.
I see. So you can do all kinds of streams.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's only my MIDI. It's a little tedious trying to remember what
I know. I get.
it's tedious.
I'm like, what
Once you
channel
got
is
it,
on
once you
RA
nail it,
keys
once
or
you nail it, you're done.
That
Okay.
is super cool.
so just to give you an idea of what it entails, what I've done is on my iPad, I've downloaded the MIDI manual, right? And you'll notice every single controller number here, I'm trying to show on the screen there.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
good.
people online
Oh, yeah.
are seeing this.
Great.
But so every single facet of control of the pedal has a controller number assigned to it.
Okay.
So depth is controller number 26. The A and B functionality is 27. If you want to engage infinite repeat, that's controller number 29. So once you know this legend or this key, you can program your MIDI controller to send out those controller numbers on each one of these buttons.
And that's pretty easy. I mean, you just follow the.
It's easy because companies like Morningstar make it easy with their software, right?
Yep.
So you can program each one of these buttons either to send out a program change or a controller change number. So in the case of the Delta multipliers, I've assigned, I don't know, I'm just like ×2 to be controller change number 22, ×3 to be 23, 24, 25, etc. So every time I press them, Rose interprets that as me actually moving the knob to that specific place. But again, it requires you getting into the manual, finding out what the assignments are, and then programming your controller to send out those assignments at any given moment.
And then you discover your controller doesn't have enough knobs.
Yes, and then you got to come back to Mod 8 and pick up a new controller, right? You got it.
Well, Vasquez got a 64 knob controller.
Nice. Oh, well, yeah, 60. If you need more than 64 knobs, then you must be like doing some interdimensional stuff. That's pretty amazing. So I want to kind of continue the history story a little bit. Yeah, you have another question.
Is it mono or stereo?
The pedal is mono, right? Just like all the other delay pedals I showed you earlier on the screen, it is monophonic. Yes.
Okay, presets. I can save a preset on this unit.
Yes, and this is how you do it.
There's 5.
There are 5 per bank. So there are 5 banks. So you press the presets button, and you see how these two, they're blinking. The one on the right chooses your bank, 1 through 5. So let's say you choose bank 1, and now the one on the left chooses your preset within that bank, 1 through 5.
So I get it set up, I save it, I switch to another preset. What's the relationship to my knobs in their current position and what we'll say? What happens?
They shift automatically to whatever position is programmed.
Knobs don't move.
The knobs do not move, so you have to,
Do you have to catch up or does it pick up immediately?
it picks up immediately.
So, okay, because one of the things I have problems with a lot of Baskel stuff is until you catch where you are, nothing happens.
So yeah, he's talking about the catch-up functionality that we have on, for example, the time factor, space, pitch factor, and mod factor. Currently, we don't have that feature on Rose.
But those are not continuous controllers, those are left to right.
Correct.
They're just.
There are no continuous controllers on Rose.
Okay, so if your preset's got you, like, say, at 3 o'clock, okay, and then, and then you just come back somewhere, and you switch back, and if your knob's over at 9 o'clock, what happens when you go up?
It picks up wherever the knob is, it'll pick up from that point. Let's say your preset on the rate knob is set to 3, but your knob is somewhere in the 9 range. As soon as you move it, it'll pick up where the 9 is. Now, if you're using an external controller with infinite knobs, then it'll work the way you want it to, where it'll...
That's always a challenge on that, trying to figure out, okay.
So, yeah, we're...
But 25 presets, that's
25 presets, and this is something new. We released this functionality over the summer NAMM. Another function...
Does the DDL have presets?
The DDL does not have presets, no. No. So like most modular Eurorack stuff, you kind of have to build it as you go and remember your positions.
That's the philosophy.
Yeah. You know, that's why I like the 1010 Music Bitbox, because it just plays my samples. I don't have to recreate them here. Otherwise, this workshop would take 3 hours instead of more.
That's super convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. What other questions do you guys have before we move on to H9 Max?
So the rows, the DDL, similar, almost exact circuit.
Almost exact architecture, and it's technology we're calling bit bucket brigade, right? Because it functions like an analog bucket brigade, but instead of shifting voltages, you're shifting samples. And the benefit to that is longer delay times, shorter delay times, modulation, the way some of the early 80s lexicon units could generate and create pitch changes. So those units currently in the used market are going for like $800 to $1,000. Now you can do the exact same thing with a $350 pedal.
It's awesome. The tone filter is so
It's
cool because
fun.
4MS one local companies, they have a digital delay, it's a module, and that has that, it goes down into those. And I love playing that. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And is there, okay, so is there an option to preserve your pitch and increase the delay time? Or is it always going to be the pitch shift?
Can you repeat the question again?
Is there an option to preserve your pitch while you increase or decrease the amount of delay?
No, because again, this bucket brigade architecture, the side effect is as you speed up or slow down the sample rate, you change the pitch. So there isn't a way to keep the pitch at one harmony or one note while you shift the delay time. For that, you use one of our digital delays or any other digital delay of your choosing, right?
Is that time stretching?
Not the way you're thinking like an Ableton or anything like that. But again, it sounds like time stretching because of the pitch shifting, but in reality, you're just shifting sample rate. So no, it's not time. I wouldn't define it as time stretching, you know. Cool. So if we could switch back to the PowerPoint, I'd like to just continue the Eventide story as we make our way to how the H9 Max came about. So in 1974, Eventide released the Omnipressor, right? I hope I don't get feedback. All right, cool. No, let's not do that.
We can turn it down.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I'm here. So Omnipressor is the first compressor in history to be able to compress and expand simultaneously, right? And we invented something called dynamics reversal. So, for example, the Who used it to create reverse cymbal sounds, you know? Before there was ever Pro Tools that we could just reverse a waveform, you had to kind of use some trickery for that, right? Or people use the Omnipressor to make your voice sound like it's coming at you in reverse. Really interesting processing. But this is also the processor that introduced side chaining to the industry, right? Side chaining is very pivotal, especially with like today's electronic music and the way we process bass. But if you're an engineer and you're compressing 8 channels of a drum mix, you want there to be side chaining so the compressor pays attention to or doesn't pay attention to a particular frequency range or track so that it doesn't pump to it, etc. So another interesting bit of trivia about the Omnipressor, it was one of the first units to use look-ahead technology that is so pivotal to some higher-end compressors of today, right? So moving on. Tony Agnello, who is currently the director of the company, was the engineer behind the original H910 harmonizer, the world's first multi-effects rack mount processor that had delay and pitch shifting in it, right? So this is the beginning of an era here. This is the reason why the H9 is called a harmonizer. Not so much because it was the be-all, end-all pitch shifting device, but just because that was the name of the original processor, the harmonizer. Because obviously it could do things no other processor in history could do, right? Its successor, the H949, added more effects. This is the first instance of reverse delay, right? But also the first instance of a very famous Eventide process called micro pitch shifting, which is pretty much industry standard doubling, right? To some, particularly guitar players, it sounds like a type of chorus effect. but a lot of people use it for voice to kind of like add this beautiful spread. You hear it most commonly on like Phil Collins vocals, or heck, even Marilyn Manson or Al Jurgensen. They use it drastically to add like that width, or that, you know, that you hear on their vocal productions, right? But the 949 actually made its way into the broadcast industry. If you were a television producer and you had 30 minutes of an I Love Lucy episode, you needed to speed it up to be able to add commercials for syndication or whatever, right? What happens to audio when you speed up tape? Pitch goes up, it gets chipmunked, right? So we developed these systems here. One was computer-based, one was a more modular-based systems, that depending on how fast or how short you made the content, it would calculate a value on the harmonizer to repitch it back to normal, so it would be less obvious that your favorite I Love Lucy rerun had been sped up, right? So yeah. In fact, Eventide got its start in the industry in general because we invented auto location on tape machines, and we sold that idea to Ampex, and with that, we established a company. Cool bit of trivia for you. Anyhow, early 80s, SP 2016 was highly regarded as one of the best digital room reverbs of its time, okay? But it was also the beginning of an era for Eventide, of it giving its sound design software away for free. So if you knew enough about computer science and you had the adequate computing system, you could actually design your own effects, your own algorithms. This is where a lot of the research in algorithm construction was done, right? In fact, you could later burn them onto EEPROM chips and actually plug them into the hardware. This is where the term plugin comes from. Okay? Now we think of plugins as software applications that you use in your favorite digital audio workstation, but in reality back then we were plugging in EEPROM chips, software, into the hardware. And this is the beginning of effects like reverse reverb, shimmer reverb, multi-tap and filter delays, auto panning, time scrambling, all sorts of beautiful and interesting effects. In fact, there's an online forum of people trying to collect the EEPROMs from all over the world, and they've made a list of all these interesting effects that you could discover. But anyhow, this is what the inside looks like. And of course, that technology would eventually make its way into one of the industry mainstay effects processors, right? The Ultra Harmonizer. There isn't a record in the last, close to 50 years that somehow, in some way, shape, or form, wasn't processed using an Ultra Harmonizer, right? Last year, we changed the game again because we now forego closed DSP architecture for ARM-based processing. What that means is it's open to a wider range of development tools and developers. So we're still at the forefront of sound designing. Yeah? You could download our VSIG application and actually go into our current algorithms, see how we built them, and make your own adjustments. Like I just spoke with somebody earlier. We have an artist, Kurt Kurosaki, who lives in California. He uses VSIG to make quadraphonic Eventide algorithms for his Buchla setup. I mean, that's really cool, right? To our detriment, however, this desire to get everybody involved in research for audio has caused our competition to kind of, let's just use the word, emulate what we're doing and look at those designs and make their own versions. Nonetheless, yeah, that's just the world we live in, right? Anyhow, so these are the processors that for decades have been in every single major studio. But the problem we face as a company is now when somebody walks into a shop like Modular 8 and they see Eventide, it's probably their first foray into the brand. Why? Because they're no longer stepping into these multi-million-dollar facilities where they would normally see our high-end ultra harmonizers, right? So, I mean, it got to the point where in the early 80s and 90s, musicians were like, well, I want my album quality sounds out on the road with me. So they started putting them in their guitar rigs, right? Guys like Michael Landau and Andy Summers and Robert Fripp. So we decided, why don't we take the most widely used algorithms from these high-end processors and come up with a line of pedals that simplifies things, right? This is actually an interesting picture here. This is the Edge's rig. As you can tell, he's got about 11 or 13 different delays here. Last year, they went out on the road for the Joshua Tree anniversary show, and he is now using rack-mounted modeling processors, but instead of taking out his H3000, now he takes out his H9 Max in the shelf, right? Because it gives you all of that complete collection of sounds. But anyhow, in the early 2000s, we decided, let's take the most widely used effects from the ultra harmonizers and come up with a line of pedals. We call it the Factor series, right? Pitch factor, time factor, space, mod factor, named after Richard Factor, one of Eventide's founders, right? So here you have 12 of our best reverb algorithms, 10 of our best digital delay algorithms. Mod factor gives you 10 modulation algorithms like vibrato, rotary, chorusing, flanging, phasing, etc. Pitch factor is actually almost like a mini H910, H949 harmonizer in a stompbox format with added benefits like octavers and arpeggiators, really cool stuff, right? What we've done recently is taken all 4 of those and combined them into one compact MIDI-capable stompbox we call the H9. So decades, almost 5 decades worth of algorithm design is packed into this very small pedal, right? Now, there are 3 different versions of this pedal: the H9 Core, the H9 Harmonizer, which internally we've dubbed the H9 Standard, and the H9 Max. All the same hardware. What changes based off of what you pay is how many pre-installed algorithms you get from factory. The Max currently has 51 algorithms. The last one we released was a harmonic tremolo that does some really amazing stuff, has built-in envelope filters controlling crossover points, effect depths, among other things. Before that, it was a 6 oscillator Moog-style monosynth. Before that, it was, I forget, I think it was pitch fuzz, which is fuzz distortion with 3 harmonies and 2 delays. And the delay has 2 delay types, arpeggiation and regular. I mean, it's like really amazing stuff. So it's an open-ended product. We're continuously releasing new algorithms. So the rhythm has been about every 8 to 9 months, there's something new, right? Once you're a Max owner, not only do you get the full library, but any new algorithms we release in the future, you get them for free for life, right? So there's a lot of value added making the investment to go Max from the get-go. Now, a lot of our artists tend to double up. And for those people, we recommend getting a Max and then getting a Core, because Eventide allows you to dump all 51 algorithms into the Core for free, right? So up to 4. So you have one H9 Max master, and then you can have up to 4 more cores. Correct, correct. Right. So if we think about the kind of value you get making the initial investment to go H9 Max from the get-go, it's like owning all 4 of our previous Factor series pedals, right? Plus all the algorithms that we've designed. I think the current count is at 9 algorithms that you won't find on any of our other Factor series pedals. But again, if we want to put a monetary value on that, it's close to $2,000 worth of value for $699. And rather than explain the front panel to you, I want you to hear it, because it's a very, very impressive pedal. So if we want to switch the view to the H9 Max, I'm actually, probably the best thing would be to switch the view. I'm going to connect the HDMI cable to my iPad here. That way, you can see what's going on.
Sorry, it's
That's okay.
it flickers when it initially starts. So we'll get there.
Let's just make sure my audio is set. All I'm doing here is changing to a different set of loops I have for programmed for H9. I'm going to ride my mix control here. So there you go. So what I have for you is just a couple loops, and I've created a preset list on the free app called H9 Control. H9 Control just gives you a bird's eye view of what's going on inside of the pedal. I'm going to turn this around. I'm actually just going to get rid of this here for a second. All right. So as you can see here, you have access to all 10 time factor algorithms, all 10 mod factor algorithms, all 10, perfect. All 10 pitch factor algorithms, 12 space algorithms, and this is the exclusive category of effects that you only find on H9. So if we take a look at that pitch fuzz algorithm here, you have a different view where you can see the routing of your audio going through the fuzz, the 3 harmonies, and the 2 delays. If we engage an effect called space time, there you get modulation, dual vintage delay, and plate reverb. And if you want, you can run that reverb in series or in parallel with the delay. So the answer to the question is, can the H9 do more than one effect at a time? It depends on the algorithm. Did you have a question?
Is that block diagram, that's a new feature, right?
It is a new feature for that particular algorithm. Space-time we released about 1.5 years ago or 2 years.
It's not in all of them.
It's not in all of them.
Is it going to be on all of them?
In the future algorithms, yes, because we see the benefit in visualizing things a different way. Obviously, we adhere to the 10 knob architecture. Like right now, this is our latest algorithm, our harmonic tremolo called Harmadillo. And here you have the view that shows you the 10 knobs, the way you would see them, for example, on one of the Factor Series pedals. But you have this extra view where you can really see like where your crossover point is and what the waveform looks like. So in this particular algorithm, you have 13 different waveforms, including one where you can really get in there and kind of customize it, etc. But again, what I've done is I've created a preset list of some of my favorite sounds, because we're already running a little bit over. So I want to share those with you and show you sonically what it is you're able to get, right? So here is the loop bypass. Now I'm going to start tapping effects. Bypass that, and I go to the next loop. This is actually me playing a motif of one of my favorite 80s rave tracks. Maybe you recognize it or not, right? So right now the H9 is bypassed. Something a little bit different here. couple different styles of delay, right? Some were filtered, some were designed to spread because it added a little bit of mod in them. And they have built-in filters, so you don't necessarily filter the kick drum along with everything else in there, right? This is the power of an algorithm. There are multiple processes going on. Let's try another one for fun. See. Right, let's try something else here. Bypass. Try one more, a couple more. It works well also with busier stuff. So like if you have a full-fledged synth. Well, it's a reverb with a tremolo in it, right? You also have a series of tone controls, high pass and low pass filters, pre-delay control. You also have stereo imaging as well.
I'm just saying, why are there two titles on the tremolo verb and splitter?
Well, one is the algorithm, tremolo verb, and the preset title is splitter verb,
Gotcha.
right? And in this view, all of our algorithms have an XY view. So you can assign X and Y to two different things and do wondrous things.
How do you get to that view again? That was my next question.
Yeah, just on the top right, XY.
Oh, XY.
Yeah. And you can do interesting things like rubber bands. So when the rubber bands engage, you could stretch the depth, and then it'll automatically go back to the original point. You can even do the Richie Houghton thing where he uses the angle of the iPad to control the depth of the effect. As you can see, it's reacting to the angle.
I had no
That's,
idea we did. That's
yeah,
cool.
so tilt and,
Clear off and make it sound good.
yeah. So again, just another wonderful programming tool that you could use at your disposal with the H9 control, right?
Couple things real quick.
Yes.
You know, assigning those blue preset multi, it's real easy to do.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is assigning expression control. So as you can see, I have a ribbon controller here, and you see how the knobs are reacting to that movement? On the left side of the algorithm, where I'm tapping right now, you see the little blue light? That's your min point. So let's say I want to assign my mix to there, and then I hit the one all the way on the right over here. That's my max point. And that's how easy it is to
Yeah, it's really simple.
make assignments. So if you wanted to, you could morph from one preset to the other the way you can with rows, making a multitude of assignments. The answer to the question, can the assignment go in reverse? Yes. You set your min point there and your max point there, and now the knob is going in reverse. Or let me see, did I get that right?
That backwards.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, min point.
Oh, another key point.
Ah, here we go, there we go. So now these two knobs are going in opposite directions, so you could do things like that as well. Some algorithms have a hot switch, which instantaneously will change the settings from one preset to the other just by tapping that button. So you could use that as another tool. What other questions?
Well, and the other important thing is that the CC control, each of the 10 knobs across all the algorithms is the same CC number.
No, that's incorrect. Each parameter is assigned its own controller change number.
Yeah, but it's, you can pre-assign, like, for example, it's for number 1, right? It's the same CC across several, that's my understanding.
No. You can assign multiple parameters the same controller change number. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. But yeah, in order to have individual control via Midi over each parameter, each one has to have its own controller change number.
Right, 10 different ones, right?
Correct.
When I switch presets, those CC controllers carry through the next preset.
Correct. Yeah, the controller change numbers are a global setting.
Right, okay, well, I guess I was looking. You know what, one thing that really irks me about the, like the time-based ones, if I switch presets, it cuts off the old one and then drifts into the new one, which you'd expect. It'd be really, really nice. There's some sort of like overlap or, you know, tails on the first one. So when you switch them, right, you wouldn't have to be.
Yeah, you're talking about, there's a term for that.
Well, I just call it, you know, overlap or.
No, there's a term for that which is escapes my mind at the moment. But yeah, that's the reason why some artists get two of them. So when they switch one off and that trails off, the other one picks off without doing what you're saying. Spillover. You're talking about spillover. That's the term.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of ambient stuff with mine, and I want to switch the thing, but I have to have something else going on to cover up the fact it's going to take a while to catch up.
Correct. There isn't spillover from preset to preset.
Fix that, there is not.
Well, no. In order for there to be spillover, you'd have to have dual engines. And that also means twice the price. Right? Yeah. So again, people overcome that by investing in two of them so that when you bypass one, the other one takes up where the other one left off, right? Right. There's rudimentary versions to implement spillover, like what we've done in space in our space pedal, but that involves more crossfading than it actually uses dual engines, right? It's a feature request, definitely a big feature request.
Can you create your own presets, say combining a reverb, a delay, to create your own?
No, you cannot create your own algorithms unless you're messing around with our ultra harmonizers. But you can't create your own H9 algorithms, no.
Not with this app.
No, the app is great for creating presets of existing algorithms
And adjusting those.
and adjusting those, or creating preset lists, or making MIDI assignments, or things like that. One crucial thing for you guys to understand also is that there are very interesting things, like if you go into general settings, you can tell it what kind of an instrument you have hooked up to it, whether it's a guitar, a bass, a synth lead, a synth bass, and it'll optimize the audio across all the algorithms for your instrument, right? Yeah.
Another
Algorithms, where's
What's the question?
where's the instrument setting?
Okay, so you go to pedal settings, under general settings, and you search for source instrument. There you have 4 choices: synth bass, synth lead, bass, and guitar. You also have the option to change the routing. So if you want to send output channel 1 somewhere and output channel 2 to another place, you can use pre-post. There's even a setting for wet and dry. And the reason you'd want to do this is you could have the H9 appear before or after an external pedal or an outboard effects processor. Or if you're a guitarist, you can have all your gain-based effects go straight into the front of the amp, and all your time-based effects go to the amp's effects loop. So you have that flexibility as well. Another thing that makes the H9 different than a lot of the other MIDI-capable products that are on the market is that it generates MIDI messages, where others only receive MIDI messages. You can make the H9 a MIDI master, per se, right? So it can send program changes, CC number controller changes, which a lot of MIDI-capable products from competitors can't, right? Correct. You could do that. What other questions do you have?
I got one more.
Yeah.
Okay, so like H9 control, 2 pedals works great on Android. Now I gave up on my iPad because it can't keep track of Bluetooth of 2 H9s. Is that get solved?
I don't know why you're having an issue, because I can do so on mine.
Over a year, I gave up trying. You launch Bluetooth. Maybe it looks been having 2 pedals up.
So check it out. Right here, as we were speaking, I've attached both of my H9s to the app.
Both at the top, you can switch.
Yeah, and I can switch from one to the other.
I got so pissed, I just gave up.
This is a newer iPad. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know what to tell you, but it is possible. Apple limits you to 3 devices.
Because I posted some things on a forum. The response I got back from Eventide, well, it's Apple's problem. That's what we heard. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll go back and try it now. Maybe it's not good.
That response wouldn't have been my approach, but it is possible, as you can see here, to pair multiple H9s to one device. Yeah, I don't know. Happy to answer any more questions.
Can you talk about the accessories available for H9, the switches and things?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just lift this pedal board up. I hope it won't cause a power outage. But as you can see here, I have 2 H9s on my pedal board, and they each have an OX9. The OX9 allows you to connect it to the expression pedal input, and you can make assignments. So you can, for example, access the tuner, or bank up and bank down. You can even bank up and load, and bank down and load, or tap tempo. Or maybe you could program one of the 10 parameters to switch between one value or the other. So this is all advanced functionality that you can program straight from the front panel, or use H9 control to do so. Now, the OX9 has a switch on the side here. When it's away from you, it's in expression pedal and 1 button mode, right? Because we're only dealing with tip, ring, sleeve. When it's toward you, it's in 3 button mode. So there's another input here where you could have 1 button, 2 button, and a 3rd button there. So for example, I have this custom-made analog Endeavour controller here, and this switch is hooked up to the 3rd button input on this OX9, and that accesses my tuner. And in doing so, I could set the H9 to mute when I tune, or not, whatever you want. And then this knob right here is actually hooked up into this OX9 input, and that's controlling my modulation. So as you can see, as I move this knob, which you would normally do with the toe of your shoe or whatever, of your foot rather, you can see the modulation change, right? So yeah, the OX9 is just a more ergonomic 2-button switch system that you can use for H9 rather than use. These are 79. 79.
How will you bank up and down without one of those?
Okay, so to bank up and down on an H9,
Like the rotary thing?
yeah, so if you press the presets button, wherever you land, it'll automatically load the sound, right? But let's say you're at a show and you're the lead singer and you need to switch sounds or whatever. The right foot switch, you'll notice it increments, right? And it's blinking, letting you know that it's on deck. Once you hit the left foot switch, it engages the effect. If instead of going up, you want to go down, you hit the black knob, and now it'll switch downward, right? So the benefit of the OX9 is you can have it bank up and load at the same time with one button press versus the two that it takes normally, right? So that's one of the cool things that you can map to the switches on the OX9. Otherwise, if you hold the tap button down for 2 seconds, you're in tap tempo mode. Obviously, right now I'm in a preset that doesn't have. Let's say I go to a delay preset, right? You can see the tap tempo being represented there, the BPM. So hold it down another 2 seconds, you're in preset mode. But really, if you're at home or in your studio and you have the presets button pressed, wherever you land, it'll automatically load. Otherwise, if I tap icons in my preset list, you'll notice it's automatically changing because there's Bluetooth communication going on between my tablet and H9. So those are the ways that you can access sounds. I want to demystify the front panel a little bit for you. So you have X, Y, and Z. Obviously, it's a very elegant design. You don't have all 10 knobs at your disposal the way you'd have on a space or a time factor pedal. But you can assign 3 of 10 parameters to X, Y, and Z for immediate access, and then you use the black encoder to dial in your values, right? What I like to do is keep one of the buttons in expert mode so I can scroll through all 10 parameters with one button and then just access the value there, right? Let's say I wanted to program button Z to the high frequency decay, then I just hold it down for 2 seconds, and every time I hit Z, it'll be high frequency decay. I want to go back into expert mode, hold that button down for 2 seconds, and I'm back to being able to surf all 10 parameters with one button, right? Okay. What other questions do you have? Cool. Well,
I think it's awesome. I have one question.
yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely.
I know you've been up there all the time. Thank
No,
you so much.
good to be here.
Really, really great.
My pleasure.
Talk about the mixing link. Do you use that with
Yeah.
It's like I don't really
Mixing Link is a very unique box because it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife for musicians and engineers. What he's referring to that I didn't bring with me, or maybe I did.
I have one.
I have one. I have a picture of one. Sorry, I'm scrolling through all the software here. So Mixing Link. This is a direct box. It's also a small format mixer. It's a headphone amp. It's a preamp. So you can have, I think it's 60 dBs of gain with phantom power. So let's say some uses. You're a bass player, you need a DI, simple. You plug your bass into here, get the +4 signal straight to the console, DI box. Let's say you have an 8-channel interface that has 4 mic preamps and you need a 5th mic preamp. What do? You plug your microphone into here, engage phantom power, take this to the TRS balanced input of your interface. Voila, you've added another preamp to your arsenal, right? Let's say you are a traveling musician and you need to make adjustments on your pedal board. Obviously, you're not going to connect your amplifier without waking up everybody in the hotel. So what do? You plug your pedal board into the instrument input, and now you can monitor yourself via headphones. So it's a little headphone amp, right? Or let's say you're my teacher, I'm your student. We could both plug into this box. Like you could plug into there, I could plug into there, and we can go to one amplifier. Conversely, you can send your signal to amp A or amp B using this as a splitter. You can do that as well. You can use it as a small format mixer. So let's say you have a singer-songwriter and she wants to plug her microphone into here. You have your gain control there to control your volume. You can plug your acoustic guitar into there. Send the signal out to a personal monitor, and then send the main signal out mono sum to front of house for the lounge that you're in or whatever, right? Heck, you could even plug in a keyboard over here. But really the best feature, in my opinion, of the Mixing Link is that you, typically if a vocalist wanted to connect their microphone to a guitar effect, you can't really do that unless you have like an impedance matcher or a preamp, etc., right? So this unit kind of opens up that world for people. You plug your mic into here, you have your gain control there, and now from the 2 effects, you can send that to one of your favorite effects processors, like an H9 Max or a Zvex Fuzz Factory or something. And now you can see how your voice sounds going through all the myriad guitar effects that exist, right? And this takes care of all the impedance matching for you. You can even mix your signal in different ways, have it completely kill dry, or run it 50%, 50-50, or any balance adjustment that you can make using this three-way toggle switch here. As you can see, you have dry plus effects mode, mix mode, and then effects only mode, right? So yeah, mixing link. It's a jack of all trades. I named it the Swiss Army knife for musicians and engineers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, on the H9, what's the correct voltage for your wall? You guys ship it with a 9, I think.
9 volts, 500 milliamps.
Doesn't it say 12 on the back?
Does it? But it ships with a 9 volt. 9 volts will do.
Well, it works with 9, but take a look at the back. Does it say 12 volts?
9 volts is the correct one.
All right.
Yeah, 9 volts is the correct one. On that note, we do have a new product out for those of you that build pedal boards. I don't see it here. The mixing link is $299 for a limited time only. Right, today, right. Oh, this is an old one. I mean,
Oh, I have another question while you're looking.
yeah, absolutely.
Just briefly, I know you've been up there, this has been great. Talk about the importance of power with these pedals. Like, you sell very good multi-power outlets.
Well, these are digital pedals, so it's not like they're going to sound differently at 9 volts or 18 volts. Like I have a King of Tone overdrive that sounds glorious at 18 volts. But changing the voltage on a digital pedal will do absolutely nothing except maybe damage it if it can't handle it, right? What the solution we have now is not this one. Oh, it's because I'm hooked up to my iPad. Let me go back to, there we go.
Give it 5 seconds.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Almost there. Almost there.
Yeah, keeps us in suspense. Anyhow, I've been powering this entire rig with our new product, the Power Max. This is,
There you go.
there you go. So the Power Max here gives you 7 outlets, 660 milliamps. So if you wanted to, you could power 7 Eventide pedals or equivalent, right? Whatever manufacturer you like to use. On top of that, it's switchable from 9, 12, 15, and 18 volts. So you no longer have to waste money on a power supply that wastes one of your outlets being 18 volts when you only maybe have one pedal that functions at that, right? All of this is customizable. Weighs less than a pound, less than an inch high. It fits under pedal train nano boards. But really, it's switch mode universal power supply. So it doesn't matter if you're in Europe, the States, South America, you don't need a converter for it to work properly, right? Ultra quiet, all isolated outputs. This is a product designed in conjunction with Chox, a very popular power supply solution company, right? So, and that's
You're
one.
in Germany, right?
Poland.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I met that guy.
Yeah, super nice guy. I mean, very smart. We're coming out with a complement product to it that's a 4 output jack version of this soon. We're in beta right now, but yeah, Power Max, one of the best power supply solutions that you can get out there, right?
Those things are so useful, again.
Yeah.
Your pedals aren't sensitive to power, but many are.
Oh, absolutely,
I have
absolutely.
bad power supplies. They wants to hear what a standard, what a bad power supply would do to your pedal.
Oh yeah, no, you don't want to. Another neat feature of the Power Max is that over here, obviously you can't see it, you have a USB output. So I use that to power like some of my Roland synths that are bus powered. You can use it to power your mobile device. Obviously a lot of our products are mobile device friendly. I thought I'd mention that our Factor Series pedals can also be connected to H9 control. You need a USB to camera adapter. So the USB cable goes into the back of the Mod Factor, into that adapter, into your tablet, and you can access the same functionality of the software that I've been using for H9 Max. That's something that not a lot of people were aware of, but yes, you have that capability.
Been a feature?
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you the date, but I know it's been at least 3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
This has been very illuminating.
It's been my pleasure, guys. I'm going to hang out for a little bit if you want to come up. Thank you so much for coming out to Modular 8. And everybody who's been tuning in online, thank you. I appreciate it very much. Take care, guys.
Let's do the raffle.
All right, the raffle.
Yeah. First of all,
So my understanding is the winner gets a choice between a Euro DDL digital delay or an Eventide Rose.
we have a couple of online entrants too.
Okay.
Everybody got a ticket, right?
The winning number
All right.
is
Here we go. The winning number is 45617.
45617. 17. All right.
Nice.
Congratulations. Oh, you're very welcome.
Pick your prize. Rose or a Eurorack Euro DDL.
Nice. Okay, good choice.
There you are. Thank you so much.
We've got catalogs here. We have Euro DDL kind of guides here, stickers, if you guys like stickers. Yeah.
And we just got a big shipment. We basically have the entire,
Eventide line.
we have the entire Eventide stock box and line with the switches, the power max. Yep, I got an H9 Max right now, and then everything else too. Got the Power Max, Bar 9.
Oh, my pleasure. I had fun, man. You know, it's always great to talk to people who are passionate about audio and yeah.
Where do we got? How is where are the MIDI ins on this?
So you have the expression pedal input is configured to receive MIDI. So I'm going from here to a 5-pin to TRS converter. Disaster area makes it. And then that's coming out into the expression pedal input that's configured for MIDI.
Okay.
You can configure it for CV control, for expression, for MIDI, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or auxiliary. You can program an auxiliary switch as well.
The MIDI drivability for that.
Oh, it really opens up the can of worms. And again, it's only possible on a digital pedal, right? Yeah, can't do that on a
And
on a
is this
hybrid.
line also MIDI drivable?
100%.
And
Yeah.
through the same
Yeah.
mechanism?
There's even people that started out owning one of these and then they went the H9 Max route, but they're using this to control the H9 Max.
That's a
Yeah.
expensive MIDI.
Expensive. But yeah, you know, yeah.
Cool. All right, I gotta run, but thanks much.
My pleasure. Take care.
So,
Hi.
Ian,
I'm Joe.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for doing the demo. So to get so these